Mike Whalen. I am Carl. I'm an addict alcoholic, and my sobriety day is August 22nd, 2014. And you are.
I am Mike Whalen, alcoholic, and my sobriety date is 12/11/21.
Ooh, go. Well, I started to do the math. Anyway, this is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. Join us this season as we read from our books, 366 Effing Days Sober. And we're not going to do it today, but I definitely have the book here. But we're not going to read from that today because we're talking to Mike Whalen. By all means, visit the soberpod.com. Go get the links, see the links in the bios, do all the other good stuff. But what we are doing here today is we're talking to somebody I met in the wild in recovery. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all, but how unique it is or what just a nice experience it is to see somebody doing something. And for, I don't know how many days it was with you, Mike, before I knew you, but before I understood that you were in recovery, it must have been, I don't know, maybe about a month or 2 months at least before I even knew that you were in recovery. And it was kind of cool. One of the things that I had done is I had gone to one of your stand-up sets, and I just happened to be there. And you're I don't know, a quarter of the way through your set, and you start talking about recovery, and I'm like, it's those moments when you're identify. You're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
like him and I, we are in the same secret societies, and and so it's just unique. And I think one of the things that I wanted to do with these kinds of episodes is just to talk to people that I have met outside of the rooms of recovery and who are that I didn't meet in a meeting, that I didn't go to treatment with, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And just
Yeah.
get together and have a quick interview. I honestly, people, I barely know Mike. How I know Mike is, we go to the same theater. We're in improv circles, and again, I have interest in doing stand-up, so I was like, all right, I'm going to go see what this is about. And that's pretty much how I know Mike. I don't know Mike. I mean, I know him from a stand-up set. How much of that is actually true or not, I'm not even sure, right? Because we all just we do jokes. So I just thought this would be a really cool opportunity to meet somebody from how I knew them in the wild, and to talk to them about their recovery and how that works in their lives. And again, I'm coming from this different perspective to see. So I have a lot of different kind of questions, I think, about this stuff. So, Mike, do me a favor, and if you can, give the listeners a snapshot or picture of your using, and then your I guess moment of clarity, right, to where that you need to seek help. If you could do that, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I think I always knew that I needed help, even from the very beginning. Early on in my drinking, I think I knew, this can't go on like this forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in a family. It was just me and my mom. My dad left before I was born. He did the long-term Irish goodbye. And whenever I tell that joke, my girlfriend always says it's more sad than funny. Yeah. But he was functioning alcoholic, or I don't know if he was functioning or not. But my mom was, and she worked in a bar, and I kind of grew up in a bar,
Mm-hmm.
playing pool and Pac-Man and doing my homework in a booth and eating Maracano cherries and just crushing Shirley Temples. So I kind of grew up in the bar culture, and everybody in my family, drinking was just a big part of growing up for me. All the adults seemed to love it and have fun, and I couldn't wait to do it myself. And then, of course, once I started, it was just kind of almost immediately, I had a bad reaction to it, blacked out my first time. But we had a sleepover, a bunch of us, and we went to a party, and we were all staying at this guy Joe's house. And we left the party, and I kept drinking. I was going down to the parents' house, and they eventually had to call. I blew the whole thing out of the water. My mom had to come get me and pick me up. I think I was like 13. I was completely blacked out. And that was kind of the roadmap for the rest of my drinking. I mean, that was, and it just continued. I joined the Navy, which is probably wasn't the best thing. Because once I got in the Navy, it was like, I was kind of encouraged, and it was, I mean, that's what you do in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
My mom passed away while I was in the Navy. And then once she passed away, I was like, all right, now it's just, because now it's like she was my parental figure. I had nobody left. I'm like, all right, well, so I really went off the rails. And I remember in Singapore, we were supposed to be, I pretty much left my mom's funeral, flew back to the ship, and we were in Singapore, and everybody was on liberty. So everybody was out in town. I just had my bags, and they were like, yeah, just go, which was terrible. So I got blacked out in Singapore. We were supposed to leave the next day, and I wasn't back on the ship. Everybody was supposed to be back at 10 o'clock, and they didn't know where I was. So they woke everybody in the air department up, which was about 600 people in their pajamas and their underwear. Everybody's standing at attention on the aircraft carrier. I'm out, blacked out in Singapore, and everybody's waiting till I'm brought back to the ship. But I don't know when I got brought back. Shore Patrol found me at the airport, just completely out of my mind. And thank God they found me and not Singapore police. And they brought me back to the ship and marched me in front of everybody and was like, this is the reason you're all standing right now. You know, it was, and eventually the Navy was like, you know, they politely asked me to leave. They gave me a general.
How old were you in the Navy?
I joined at 19.
Okay.
And then my mom died at 20. And so I was gone between 20 and 21. They gave me they gave me a good discharge, but they were like, you drink too much for the United States Navy. You got to get out of here. And yeah, man, I mean, I left there and then moved out to LA to chase the comedy and acting dream. And luckily there's no drugs and alcohol involved in that. So
How old are you now?
I just yesterday I turned 41.
So yesterday was your birthday. Oh, happy birthday. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because prior to that, I kept telling people when they asked, I would be like, oh yeah, I turned 40 recently, or I just turned 40. And I'm like, dude, you turned 40 a year ago. But I like the whole just turned 40. I'm still not used to it. I don't know what, you know.
Yeah. So you definitely had a real shitty relationship with alcohol, and it definitely took its toll. I'm sure we could talk about all the drunkalogs for days and all the horror and war stories that we want. But the fact is like, you know, at some point, your mid 30s aren't looking too good. So tell me about like how did that come? Were you managing? Were you like coping? You were making a living? Did you do any jail time? I guess is the question. Yeah.
I mean, over the years, I've been out of jail probably 6 different times between DUIs and bar fights. But I met my ex, and I remember one of the first times we had hung out. She had spent the night. We had been drinking the night before, and I went. It was like 8 a.m. on like a Sunday. Mm-hmm. And she was still in bed, and I went to the fridge, and I just lived in a studio apartment, so there was no hiding anything. You know, the bed is 15 feet that way.
Yeah.
But I was ready to crack a beer. But I was like, ugh, you know, how is she going to respond to me cracking a beer at 8:30 in the morning? And then when I did, you know, try to do it quietly, then she wanted a sip. I was like, oh my God, my soulmate.
Yeah.
We're, you know,
yeah.
So we were together for years and years. And yeah, I maintained just being like a weekend warrior, just binge drinking. During the week, I was pretty good about making it to work and not drinking, because I never wanted to just have a beer. You know how guys, you come home from work and like have a beer after work? I have no interest in that. Like I want 2 cases.
If I can't drink, I would do the same thing. Like it's like you know, and people kind of justify their alcoholism in that way because to say well like you know, I didn't drink every day kind of stuff. But it's like, yeah, the reason I didn't is because if I was out with my wife and she said, and I said we were at a wedding or whatever, and I said, hey, you know, can I drink? And she said just one. I would say, nah, fuck it. I would pass on it. But if she said yes, well, that meant I game on. Like, you know, who knows where the night's going to end at that point? Yeah. Same kind of thing for me too. So
yeah, and my weekends would get pretty rough. as time went on, especially once I got introduced to cocaine, like, you know.
No, I don't know. Explain it to me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what I would do is I would tell myself, like, on Friday, like, all right, I would make these deals with myself, like, all right, if you drink tonight on Friday, you're going to drink all the way into Saturday. You'll continue to drink Saturday. And then by Sunday, you'll be enough that you can, like, get, you'll stop somewhere midday on Sunday, and then you can make it to work on Monday.
Mhm.
But if you don't drink tonight, Friday, and you start drinking Saturday, then, well, Saturday's going to roll into Sunday, and then Sunday's going to roll, and you're going to call out of work on Monday. So that was like my deal with myself. Like, all right, better start drinking now. That way you run out of gas by Sunday.
Mhm.
And that was kind of what I did. And my ex, who we lived together, that was kind of the life we led. We would just drink together, and uh, we would do blow, like, out with people. But then I just really started to like it a lot more. Like, I was just getting, even if her and I were at home having a couple drinks, I would take the dogs for a walk and text the Coke guy and pick up a gram and then do it by myself.
Mhm.
And she'd be like, "Are you doing Coke?" I'm like, "No, I'm not doing Coke. I'm just saying I have a good idea for a movie. You should really hear it out." And and then I would, she'd go to bed, and then I would pretend to go to bed and wait for her to fall asleep, and then I'd run back downstairs and just continue to drink and continue to do blow. And I made, like, little changes, like, instead of, I would put headphones on so she couldn't hear me, and I would just be in my kitchen doing lines, drinking, thinking that I'm like, never thinking like, man, you're kind of a loser. I was always kind of like, you're pretty awesome. Like, you're the man, which is insane.
Yeah. You're doing
My poor
shit.
dog was just sitting there looking
Yeah.
at me, and
Yeah,
and that went on.
so at some point it all comes to a head, right? Like, at some point, like, so what happened? So clearly, you're let's just we were filling in the blanks here, but yeah, you called her your ex. So at some point that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, at some point, is
Right.
that before or after recovery? Like, how did that happen?
I mean, that was recovery. So we had been together almost 6 years, and we had a lot of big things. I think you probably know, like, bad things can happen to you that aren't your rock bottom, that you would think, oh, that was my rock bottom, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Arrests, getting kicked out. Nothing was ever bad enough that I couldn't shake it off and be like, or make an excuse up for myself.
Yeah. They're all
But
assholes. It's all them and not you. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not my
yeah.
fault. Or, oh, my mom died. My dad left. I would have excuses. But I proposed to my ex. It was like a good proposal. I behaved that night. Like, I wasn't, I proposed, and then we had a wedding set up for a year later, in Mexico, like an all-inclusive. And COVID hit. So that kind of slowed things down, and, whatever, our drinking escalated and cocaine use and everything else. But we still had this wedding date set, and we had like 120 people. And I had promised, the closer it got to it, I promised myself, I'm not going to drink when we get down there. I'll drink after the actual wedding. So we were getting there on, I think, a Saturday. And then the wedding was going to be on that Wednesday. So my promise to myself was like, all right, don't drink until after the wedding. And I really believed that I would stick to that. Which, of course, like most promises I ever made to myself, I did not stick to.
Yeah.
And it was the Saturday or the Friday the Friday before we were supposed to leave. She had a couple White Claws or whatever. She could drink like a normal, like, she could have a few drinks and stop. But I decided to join her, and then she went up to bed. I got more blow, and then I was up all night. We got in a terrible fight that morning that I don't really remember. She came down and found me at like 6:30, freaked out. I'm in the kitchen at 6:30 in the morning, just in my own world. And we had to leave that night. Now we get to the airport and we meet friends there. I start drinking as soon as we get to the airport with everybody. And, we're all drinking together. So my whole rule of don't start drinking until after the wedding, that went out the window. And we got to Mexico, and it was pretty much every single day drinking and doing cocaine nonstop up through the wedding. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, I still, like, played with the kids and was like the silly, goofy uncle. But I was completely under the influence of coke and booze the whole time. And we got married Wednesday, like on the beach, fireworks, a dance floor, all this stuff. And then Thursday, we just kind of partied. Now I felt like, all right, you made it. Now you can really cut loose. Um, Doing blow, partying, whatever. Barely remember a lot of it. And then Friday, I wake up. She was going to have a girls' night on Thursday. And then Friday, I wake up and I'm saying goodbye to a lot of people. A lot of people leaving that day. And I'm texting her like, hey, where are you? I'm going to breakfast, or hey, and I'm having breakfast with my family, drinking mimosas. Like, I'm partying. Life is great. And then as time went on, I still hadn't heard from her. I hadn't seen her. But I was really just hyper focused on, you know, let's go do some shots. Let's go to this bar. Like, I had all my
Let's
Navy
party.
friends. I had people. It was, for me, it was just, this is like the great, for an alcoholic, like just an all-inclusive party, and then around like, 12, 1 o'clock, I remember I was upstairs doing lines with somebody, and then I'm like, I gotta find, and I go downstairs, and a couple of my family members grab me, like, hey, let's go look. And they're like, let's go back to your room. Maybe she's there. So we walked back to my room, but we walked along the beach. And it was like, now that I look back on it, it was like all my favorite people. And that was obviously like, they wanted to take me and sit me down, like, hey, take a seat. And I remember immediately freaking out. My cousin Keith, he had tears in his eyes. And I was like, oh my God. Because the night before with the girls' night, I thought she maybe went out in Cancun and got killed, like got in a car accident or something. But they said she had left, that she was gone.
This was your wedding?
Yeah.
And she had like so it wasn't just cold feet though, right? It was like she was done.
She was done. Yeah. See, but I didn't at the time, we got married Wednesday. She left Friday, like morning at some point. I don't even know.
So you're already married. Like so you did the ceremony, everything.
We did two. Technically, we did two because we got married in Orange County legally. We got like a little Airbnb.
Went down there to kind of do,
And then down there was just a party.
So she left basically. This is like pre-honeymoon. This is kind of like extended wedding, honeymoon-ish behavior. And then she's like, "Fuck it, I'm out of here." Like, that's some cold shit. So that's like that's just like a moment where so she wasn't partying. She wasn't doing coke at that point.
She was.
Or she was? Okay.
Yeah.
So then explain to me what happened at that point. Like, why did she ever say why she left? Did you ever put the two together? Like, how did it work out?
Well, at the time I just thought, I was like, she just had too much. She partied too much and she was just exhausted. I mean, I was making up all these reasons in my head of like, but I also didn't even process it really. I just kept that Friday, I just kept partying. I just kept drinking. I don't remember much of that Friday. And that's why that next Saturday morning, my sober date, that morning, waking up sober, in pain physically, it was like, I remember like opening my eyes and hoping that whatever I thought happened is not real. Like, that was a bad dream. Like, you know what I mean? And then I wake up and I still see all our wedding stuff in our room, like our cute little, like we had a portrait of our two dogs and us, and everybody signed it and wrote cute little notes. Like, I saw that still in the room. I saw like all this wedding stuff, but her personal belongings were gone. Which is kind of insane that I didn't notice that the day before.
That's what I was saying. Sounds like really ultimate selfish alcoholic behavior. That just sounds like
100%. Like, I was
classic
so
me shit going on.
Yeah. And then that day, that was. I mean, that's my sober date, man. That was like just such a miserable. I mean, not only was I physically just exhausted from drinking and doing cocaine for 7 days straight, it was just like a culmination of like everything. And now, like, you've lost this, like, and it was on such a public platform. Everyone knew. All of my closest friends. And family,
all your close people know what is happening.
Pretty much anybody who was in my life was there. And it was weird too, because that morning I was like saying goodbye to some of her friends, like walking them to the shuttle. And I look back on it now, and they're probably like, "Oh, this asshole doesn't even know,"
Sorry, I don't mean to
And
laugh, but it is kind
no,
of
no,
like,
no.
yeah, it's laughing.
And
Yeah.
and I had to stay because we were supposed to stay till Sunday, and then her and I were going to go on our honeymoon in another part of Mexico. So I still had to stay at the resort for another Saturday, and it was like the worst day of my life. And I was super loud and making friends with all the bartenders and some dudes from Minnesota and whatever. So now I'm like walking through the resort a completely different man. I'm just defeated and like empty and dead. But then like other people are like, Mike, what's up, dude? You know what I mean? And I'm just like,
Having the worst time. Yeah.
the worst time. And some of my friends and family are still there, and I feel, they're like, we're gonna go to dinner tonight. And I'm just like a dead. I was just like a corpse. Like I didn't know what was happening, and I couldn't get in touch with her. It was, and then eventually I was leaving that Sunday, and then I was like, I'm going back to New York, because that's where all my family is. Like my neighbor told me, he's like, dude, they changed the lock. They moved your stuff out. Like a lot happened in that weekend.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
You got cut off, my friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
That 100%.
So I guess to wrap it into and like let's say like a bottom bow, like when did you like go to treatment? Did you just get sober? Like did you like how did it happen at that point? Like did you just like wander did you wander back to New York? Like what had happened?
Yeah, I eventually, I went to LA. I flew to LAX because my family wanted me to come to New York. I'm like, no, I'm going home. I'm going home to my wife, to my dogs. I brought all the wedding stuff still. Like, I was very optimistic. I was like, this is a little hiccup, but because we've had little hiccups, I've done, things where it's like we've gotten kicked out of apartments. Like, it was a definitely toxic relationship thanks to me and my crazy alcoholism. So to me, it was like, all right, we're going to get through this, whatever this is. But then I got to LAX and I had my luggage and they're taking forever to get me through. And I'm like, what's the holdup here? And then they pull me aside and they pull me into another room. And they told me like, who are you traveling with? I'm like, nobody. They're like, who'd you come here with? I'm like, I said my ex's name. And they're like, we have a restraining order against you. I'm like,
oh, Jesus.
What? And they're like, we want to make sure you're not. I'm like, I'm by myself. I'm like in flip flops and like a Cancun, like just get married shirt. And now I'm like, holy cow. So, my Aunt Kate, who's the best, I love her to death. She's not my real aunt, but she might as well be. She came down and got me. I went and stayed with her for a couple days in Bakersfield, and I was just a wreck before I went back to New York. And my family was all there. They were just at my wedding. It was very like The Wedding Singer because like I'm in my cousin's basement and my sweet nieces, they were my flower girls a couple days ago. And now they're like, why is he sleeping in our basement?
Now Uncle Mike is sleeping on the couch in the basement.
Yeah. And it was such a weird, tough time. And I hadn't really, at the time, it was like, I was still like, we're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. My family's like, I don't think so. Yeah. But at no point was it like, it took me a while to really come to terms with like, yeah, man, this is on me. Like everybody liked to focus on, she left you. That's, this and that. And that.
Yeah. Really easy to do.
And it took me a while to be like, and the real truth of it is if you didn't know either of us and you were just watching our relationship or our wedding or whatever, as a viewer with no dog in the fight, you would be rooting for her to leave. Mm-hmm. You'd be like,
yeah, she's the woman in the Lifetime movie. You're the fucking asshole, right? Like this is plain and simple, right? Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, but again, but you don't see yourself that way while you're in it. Like you just don't. And I know, like I held my family hostage for 15 years of my drinking. I fucking totally see that now. The anger and the all the bullshit and the ego that goes along with that stuff. You see it all in retrospect, but man, it's hard to see it when you're in it. That's for damn
yeah, sure. It's a hard pill to swallow. And I also have like always, I think a lot of guys like to think of ourselves as like the hero or the good guy. And then it's like when you really sit down, you're like, damn, you weren't that at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
it's
a
a tough pill to
terrorist.
swallow.
In my family, I was a terrorist. That's really how it worked. Most of the time, it's like I change my mind on a whim. I'm really emotional, deregulated. Like again, the drinking just makes it even that much more worse. It's
Yeah.
just all that stuff. It's a level of bipolar that people really can't understand. Not that I was actually bipolar, but yeah, so I get it. Like I'm sitting here relating so much to so many things. But so you make it to your aunt's and then what happens? Like so you're still sober though, right? Like you're staying sober at that point?
Yeah. There was never any like that was it, man. That Saturday that was enough. But I was also still brokenhearted, and like the idea of drinking again wasn't even on my mind because I had all this horribleness that I mean, I don't have a home. I don't know where my dogs are. I can't really communicate with my ex. I mean, I would get like an email from her, but it was like very transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was just in, the rock bottom stage lasted for, I don't know, man, months, a year. Like it wasn't just a 1 day thing. It took a long
Yeah.
time to like, get my head out of it. But my sister, who's in the program, she's been sober since she was like 21, 22. She's my half sister. She was my dad's daughter. And I met her later on in life. But her and her husband came every day to my cousins. One of them would come every day and pick me up and bring me to an AA meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And they were super like, and it was like a 20, 30 minute out of their way to pick me
So
up.
you've never had any experience in like
No,
recovery
I
before?
had.
You never? Okay, I was just
Yeah, dude.
like,
Court ordered AA. I mean, I grew up around it. My
yeah,
relatives
me
are
too,
in
me
AA.
too.
I
Yeah.
either had court order ones or I had people take me. But I was like, man, I'm not. But at this time, I was, surrendering. Whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
So you're starting
and
to
I
see the
remember like,
writings on the wall a little bit better. You're like you're a little bit more willing to walk in there because of like all the shit that's going to happen basically
yeah.
throughout the
Listen,
years,
I mean,
and especially the wedding stuff. Yeah.
as horrible as it was, and it was horrible. It's like a ghost I still carry around with me. Like I remember the feelings from that day and from that time period really, really well. I think that's what is kind of I mean, it's great for me. It helps me and it keeps me like, keeps me sober. I
Mm-hmm.
really needed something on a grand scale like that kind of pain. Um, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better sobriety, like a kick in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so you're going to meetings every day. Your half sister is it her husband? Are they both in program then?
Yes,
Is that
yeah,
what? And then
Sheila and
and they're dragging you to meetings, which is wonderful. Like it's nice to have caring people like that. I wish I had caring people like that. It was really all up to me. That's why it took me so long to actually come back. So then, what did you end up doing? Did you end up like going? Are you like? Did you get into program, or are you just kind of like I'm program light? Like how do you see it in those early days? And then like at that point, like you're what? You're like weeks sober. You're like a month sober. Like what happens at
yeah,
that point?
yeah, about a month, a little less than a month, because then I had Christmas with the family, and it was sad and miserable, and but then I had to come back to California. We had to like deal with all this stuff. Like there was a temporary restraining order, and then my stuff got put in a storage unit. It's like I have a job here in California, but now I don't have anywhere to like I don't
Lay
have a
your
place
head.
to stay.
Yeah,
I'm like staying.
yeah.
I flew back and I was staying in like Airbnbs and hotels. Um, and it was really weird. Like one night I was at the Hilton, and another night I was at just a place that said motel. It was just in Costa Mesa, a single story. And
Yeah, yeah. I think I know
that's
that
where I
place.
got COVID. That's where I got
Oh
COVID,
yeah.
of course. Like the
Oh
whole time I'm in New York, I was thinking to myself, man, this wouldn't be a terrible time to catch COVID. Like I'm in the basement, I got the big screen TV, I've got like my family's all upstairs if I need anything. And then no, it's when I'm staying at the motel in Costa Mesa when I've
some
got
shit
13
motel, and
channels.
you're like, yay.
Yeah, like, hey, are you suicidal? 'Cause this place will get you that extra. I mean, it was a nightmare. But eventually, and I'm going to meetings. I'm going to meetings still every day. That's all I can do now. I don't have a job. I don't have, and really just going to meetings was the only thing I felt like, all right, because I hated myself. I was just like, man, at least I go in there, like, these people kind of, they're not going to be mean to me. I mean, I was very, I guess, fragile and vulnerable, which was something that I usually never tried to let myself ever be. But I was just, man. And then I went into one meeting and I met my friend whose house I'm at right now, Chelsea. She was on a Zoom and I knew her like through Instagram because we had mutual friends, my ex being one of them. And for whatever reason, I saw her on the Zoom and I spoke. And then I went in the bathroom and wrote her on Instagram and said, hey, congrats. Because we had very similar, we're like a day off sobriety wise. And I expected her to write me back, like, don't you write me, you piece of shit, like, because she was more on my ex's friend group. But I guess she didn't know anything about what had happened. And we became really good friends. Like, she had never been to an AA meeting in person. So it was like, all right, well, I'll take you to one. It's okay. You know what I mean? And me helping her get comfortable going to AA was something that I think we like had this friendship kind of started with that. And I'm jumping around a little bit. With my ex, I got my dog back, which was like a huge thing. Once I got him back, then I kind of like I was like, all right, you got something to take care of now. Like, got an apartment. I just found whatever was available. I didn't even look at it. I just said, when can I move in? Oh, done. So it was right after the Super Bowl. I went up to my Aunt Kate's with Tyrion, and I just like laid in bed with him because I was worried I'd never see him again. And then we moved into my little 1-bedroom in Cyprus. And that first year was great. I was super active in AA. I had a sponsor. I had a commitment. And Chelsea too, like we were just doing so. She was like on Instagram finding these like sober groups. We went on a retreat with like 9 girls. I was the only guy. I didn't know that. We didn't know that going into it.
Yeah.
I looked on the Instagram thing. It was like in Idaho, and it was like hiking and all this fun stuff. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And I was like, it looks like, there's guys, right? I'm not the only guy. She said, no, there's guys. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the group chat. There's none. I'm like, are you sure? And yeah, lo and behold, I was the only guy. So I was worried because I was like, oh, they're going to hate me. They're going to like this, Mike.
So Mike starts a cult in Idaho. That's awesome.
Yeah. But it was so awesome. It's probably my best experience in sobriety was hanging out with all these girls in a house. And everybody varied from ages to what they did for a living, from Minnesota to Florida to California. And it was just cool to like be in a house with people to where you're like, oh yeah, no, I used to do that too. And oh yeah, that, it was really, really like such a great experience. And that whole first year is kind of great. But the part of it is you're thinking like, oh, I just need to get to 1 year. Once I get to 1 year, I'm good to go. Like, I don't know what I thought was going to happen.
No, I did the same thing this last time. I did the exact same thing. And when I was getting my year chip, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life. Like, that's what I was like, came to that realization, like, oh shit, like this is all great and everything. But if I ever go back to where I was, I'm fucked. So I was like, well, so this is it. This is my new life. And it was kind of a grief moment for me to go like, oh shit, I'll never do that stuff again, right? But in a kind of weird way, like I was breaking off that relationship. So I was just like you. I'm like, oh, I just get to a year and I'll be okay, right? Somehow. And yeah, you realize like that's not the truth. Yeah, you have just a longer path to go. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it was. I really enjoyed the first year. Was just, but it was tough. I was going through the divorce and all these new emotions and figuring stuff out. And
so did meetings and help with all that stuff? That gave you like the support to like get through all that?
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, heartbreak is heartbreak. I don't know that AA is going to specialize in that. I mean, I used to get frustrated when my sponsor, when I would be sad and upset, and he would compare it to like something out of the book. He'd be like, you are going through a spiritual. I'm like, dude, I'm just heartbroken. Just let me be heartbroken. Like, can I just,
Yeah. Does your sponsor have that accent?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Man, I wish my sponsor had an accent that I could imitate. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, I watched the guys in the meeting, and I watched somebody who like I wanted to be more like, who I'm not. Like, 'cause there's a lot of guys who remind me of me or remind me of my uncles who are just kind of like, yeah, I was drinking, and my neighbors are, I don't know, they work a trade job just like me. Like, I'm like, I know you already. I don't need, But my sponsor, I saw him. And there was a homeless guy that came up to our little circle because we went to a meeting at a park outside. And there was a homeless guy who came up, and a lot of people shooed him away. And I watched my sponsor. I didn't know him really at the time, but he went to his car, got a chair, got the guy, and brought him over to the circle. And I was like, man, that's a cool guy. I want to be more like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's
He's,
my second
he's
sponsor who
barefoot.
died.
He's sitting. He's barefoot, sitting Indian style. I'm like, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah, but as the one who my sponsor who did die, the one I wrote because I wrote the book about, he was a compassionate dude, and he he cared for everybody. Yeah, and just like that, like I really needed somebody who was going to love, and I needed to, and I could see that. My heart changed when I got sober. That is for sure. So I guess tell me you talked about like going to LA to be like in comedy, and this is how I know you, so it's my point of reference. But so you said you were going to LA. So were you doing comedy before you got sober at all, or is that new to your recovery?
Yeah, I was, and then when I met my ex, and she was too, and then when we met, neither of us were doing anything. We just kind of like hung out with each other and just got drunk and did whatever. But I had stopped because I was just becoming like, alcohol was number one, I would go to open mics and start drinking beforehand. And I was never vigilant about it. I never treated it like a job. I eventually just let alcohol overcome. And that was that. And I kind of pissed away a lot of opportunities.
The picture I see, and it's just like, maybe whether you like it or not, I'm going to tell you. The picture I see is that, you're very active, and that, especially, and I don't know if it's because of recovery or if it's because of who you were before, but what I see you at today is I see you somebody who is, very, action oriented as it relates to like these other endeavors. So whether it be improv or stand-up comedy, I look at you and I go, oh, here's somebody who's very active and engaged in the community and really trying to like swing for some fences. And I think it's super cool to watch, from this perspective, having just come into, this community probably like a year and a half ago. I get to watch and see you do that stuff. And then to find out that you're in recovery, then I go, here's somebody who's taking action, and I can see where it comes from a little bit. I just wonder if that was the case. Like, did recovery give you more ability to take action, to get more involved, and do you use these principles and these values that you've now acquired as part of that? Just a question.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I hate, like, really, without getting sober, I wouldn't be doing any of these good attributes I did not have prior. Like, I was not a go-getter. I was not action oriented. Like, again, like any opportunity I had, I pissed away. We went and filmed a movie in Vegas, and I was really excited about it. Like, that I got the part and that I was going to have like a lot of great scenes, and I was staying in Las Vegas. It was like a big deal. And I told myself, like, dude, don't, keep it together. You can do this. You got this. Spoiler alert. I didn't have like, I ended up getting completely blacked out. Very first day that I'm supposed to be filming something. They were like, all right, we need you in like 7 hours. And I'm like, oh, okay, 7 hours.
So
and by the time I was supposed to be on set,
yeah, I
was completely blacked out. And I don't remember any of it. I just remember the next morning waking up, and the director and another actor were standing. One guy was sitting on my bed and one guy was standing. And that's never a good sign. If you wake up and there's people like kind of just waiting on you to wake up, you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
And I was like, I ruined not just my own opportunity, but like the guy who's holding the boom and the cameraman and the other actors. And I ruined everything for everybody. Money, time, just because I was completely blacked out drunk. Now that I'm sober, I don't know. I love the community. Everybody's, for one thing, it's most of the people I hang out with that do improv are practically sober. I mean, they're not heavy drinkers or cocaine users or, and it's a really nice community. And I try to think that I'm better now than I was. Like, I don't have so much of like a chip on my shoulder or like a tough guy routine that I've been doing my whole life. Like, it's just a community where everybody's a little bit more vulnerable and talk and express yourself. And I mean, that's what I'm trying since I've gotten sober, is to be like, I want to be that guy, like a calm, cool, like peaceful guy that people feel like they can talk to, and because I don't think I've ever really been that.
Yeah, and and I wasn't either. Like I even talked about, like, I don't know if it was yesterday, I was talking about like on the daily reads that I do for like Instagram. Like I used to live to blow shit up. Like that was my favorite thing. I loved causing chaos. I loved saying outlandish shit in a in a boardroom meeting, and have old ladies clutching their pearls and shit like that. It's like that was my persona. But the fact is like it was just my persona. Even back then, it was never how I felt. Today, I hope I'm that same person. I very much hope I'm exactly like you described: calm, cool, collected, approachable, amenable, and because that is like who I am on the inside, right? I like to see myself as a spiritual being, having the human experience, and last thing I want to be is that old Carl, because I didn't like him. I'm sure nobody else did too, right? So it expresses how it expresses, especially with your story. So I guess tell me this: it's like, so nowadays, like I think you just did recently. Did you recently do some filming? Did you recently do?
Yes.
So what was that experience like comparatively to like your previous experiences? You showed up.
Well, now
it was on time.
now it's all different, and it's not just filming or comedy. It's just with work and with relationships. Like it's nice to be dependable. And like people aren't worried like, oh, is he going to come? Is he not going to come? Or, people aren't afraid of me coming to their house or to their work set. Like nobody has to worry about me doing something crazy, or, I don't come with warning labels anymore. I used to be like, oh, Mike's coming. Okay, well, don't let him drink whiskey. Keep him away from a bouncer. Maybe don't go over there because it's crowded. Maybe like it was like a gremlin. Like you had to like look at this list of things that and now I'm dependable. So when I film something, I'm there early. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, it's like you're accountable to yourself, and you're, take responsibility. That was the one thing that I realized that I didn't do at all when I was drinking, was I would never take responsibility for my actions. I would somehow, no matter what the scenario is, I would somehow turn it around, whether it's the other person's fault or it's the environment's fault. It's the government's fault. It's my mom's fault. It's my dad. It's somebody else's. It's not me. It's not me.
So as you have progressed in your recovery and you get into your comedy, like how do you navigate that from that standpoint? You talked about like before, when you would do stand up, you pour on the drinks, you do whatever. But how do you approach that today? How does that work for you today? And what is that like? And again, I think I'm really more interested because for me, I was really comfortable in my recovery bubble. I didn't go to fucking bars. I just, I couldn't do it. For my first few years, like I carried a debit card and no cash, right? Because I'm like, I can't, because then that just is a barrier. I didn't go into a gas station until I was a year sober. Like I just stayed out. I just got gas and fucking left. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, so for me, I was in my recovery bubble, and I'm doing the podcast and doing all this other stuff, and talking to dudes and standing on the sidewalk after meetings, etc. That's my whole life. But at some point, I need to get out there. I need to do other shit, and I chose to do this improv stuff. And then when I'm going to stand-ups, I'm like, man, like I'm in a bar, and it's like, and I still kind of like have a little weirdness to it, but you seem to be, when I went to go see you seem to be much more comfortable than I am, that's for sure. So how do you navigate that? What kind of like presence do you put on? Like how does that work for you?
I gotta be honest, I mean, I'm really, really lucky and fortunate, but from that day in Mexico, there's never been a time when I've even thought about like, oh man, it would be nice if I could. I mean, it's just like a switch went off in me, and it's like I could be in bars. I don't like them the way I used to. I mean, it's annoying. It's not fun for me to hang out in a bar. I'll hang out for like an hour or so. And if I'm leaving, it's not because I'm tempted to drink. I just don't want to listen to, you know what I mean? It's just not as fun if you're not drinking, to just sit in a bar and drink club soda.
I have no interest in doing it either. But again, I just don't, there's a certain part of the atmosphere that doesn't jive for me like that it used to, right? So
absolutely,
it is not fun, quote unquote, in that way. So is that how you just approach it? You go there, you do your thing, you're there to do the stand up, and you just kind of, you don't add to that flavor?
A couple of weeks ago, I did a show at Flappers, and And then afterwards, you know, people had come, my buddy Andy and Jen, they came from Pasadena. Like a bunch of other friends came from all different places. So I was like, afterwards, I'm like, I'm not going to be like, all right, guys, thanks for coming. See ya. I'm out of here. I was like, you know, let's go. We went to a bar right next door, Barney's Beanery. And I used to drink in Barney's Beanery like crazy, in the one in Hollywood and the one in Burbank. And it was great. We all got a big table, and like, I think I ordered some food, but it was just fun to sit out at this place till 1 a.m. talking with friends. And at no point was I like, man, this night would be better if I had a drink, because the night would not be, I would ruin the night, a night like that. So it was just great and like, I don't mind if people are drinking. It doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't, my life has been so much better since I got sober that for me, going back, or even like being tempted by going back, I mean, it would just be like committing suicide. Like, I mean, my life would go into flames within a matter of like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. Like, fired, arrested, you know, like God knows what would happen in just a matter of 48 hours if I started drinking again.
Yeah, one of my favorite speakers talks about, like, you know, that scenario in, you know, like, and he says something along the lines of, you know, some people talk about that they went back to drinking, that, you know, it'd be like a weekend and da da da, and I sit there when I think about that stuff and I go, yeah, if you're fucking lucky, that happens, because the fact is like, it for me, the truth about it would be for me is that I'd end up right back where I was, daily fucking drinking, with a desire to shoot myself in the face almost every other fucking day, and it would be miserable, and I'd be shitting blood eventually, and you know, and I would go out slow and long, and it's like and miserable, like it's, so yeah, I'd be lucky if I went out in a weekend. I would thank God if that would happen. So okay, so I guess I do want to understand your recovery and like how you see it today. And so you were going to meetings. Do you still go to meetings? Are you still active in that 12-step fellowship, quote unquote?
I do. I did. I stopped. The last step I did was making the amends. And I think that was, to me, the most beneficial to me, because it was one of the few that you actually have to like get home, pen and paper, do the stuff, and then interact with these people. Like, a lot of the other steps were like kind of stuff that you're doing in your own, you know, I always have a hard time praying. I have a hard time meditating. I have a hard time just me and my thoughts. But doing the amends, I mean, I told my sponsor, I was like, I got like 6 people. He's like, 6? That's the number? Okay. He's like, that's not the number. You have more than 6. But go ahead and you start with 6. And turns out I didn't have 6. I ended up, you know, as I started writing them out, then more just started popping up, because it was like I was just uncovering like, oh yeah, you know what, you did do that, and it was like, man, and I was just like a maniac, just writing and page after page, but it was really, really helpful to me to like put a mirror up to myself and see like, damn, and I did like FaceTime amends, a couple in person, but they were really, really great. I did one with this, like, my best friend from the Navy, who I treated really poorly. I was a real alcoholic bully, like, but at the time I like turned it around on like, oh, he's this supporter, or he's that, and he's like the sweetest, kindest guy there is. So I know damn well there is no way that he was like, but at the time I was able to turn it around and be like, yeah, that guy. So I made amends with him, and then ended up flying down to Texas and like got to spend a weekend with him and his family, which was so nice to just have a normal like weekend together where he didn't have to worry. Because me and this guy I put him through a lot of misery in the Navy, because he was always trying to look out for me, and I was, you know, in a fight or doing something I shouldn't.
Yeah, he's trying to defend you from 600 people lining up on the fucking.
Yeah,
seaboard.
no, he was a good friend, and making the amends with him was like really impactful. And I mean, I never thought that I would cry. I always thought I was like, you know, like I haven't cried in forever. And I was working as a plumber, and my hands were filthy. And my Aunt Susie, I told her, can we do a Zoom? Because I had written the stuff out. Because I tend to make jokes. Like, if I'm just coming off the cuff and it's getting serious, I'll steer the conversation into a joke, or I'll make it light. This way, if I write everything down, I'll stay on task and like get to it. And then, so I set up the Zoom with my Aunt Susie and Uncle Alex in the middle of my workday. They're home in New York. And as soon as I start, they didn't know what was going on. They're like, "What are you doing? What are we doing on the Zoom? Are you getting married again?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no." Making amends. And then I started reading it like 2 sentences in, and I started crying. I was like, Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And my hands, and then I started wiping my eyes with my hands that are all like covered in copper and like sawdust. And then I'm like, ah. And, but I did not expect that. But all the amends were really, to me, really beneficial and really helpful. I wrote them to my ex. I didn't actually, I wrote it all out, but my sponsor and other people were kind of like, don't do an amends if it's like more for you and not for them, right? Like if it's a person who like just kind of wants to be left alone and you'd be doing more harm than good, instead of like it being like where you're patting yourself on the back, right? Like, oh, well, here, I want to do the amends because look, my life, I'm better now. And, so I wrote it out, but I never actually like, I just kind of respected her space and instead of, I don't know. Some people tell me I shouldn't have done that. Some people, I don't know.
But you didn't send it, right? You just you did it for yourself.
No,
or did you send it? Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't send it. I just wrote because it was also just like I feel like you're a lot more honest with yourself when you're writing stuff down, just sitting there by yourself instead of like
No, I've seen many amends letters from sponsees that are full of, basically like they're trying to recapture, they're trying to get it back, they're trying to re-manipulate basically, and I've just been like, no, don't fucking send it, and then there's some that have done it totally against any suggestions, quote unquote. They just send it, and then of course they're doing more damage. But how did they know that was going to happen? You know what I mean? Like it's just so it's always nice to share those things with other people too, and and to take that advice because that's the truth. It's like. I did the same thing when I got the advice from people like, don't fucking send that, don't, or hey, you just read this amends to me and it sounds like you're still trying to seek something out of it, like, and you're still trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, or you're fucking lying to yourself. And I would be like, oh, thank you. You know what I mean? Because it was true, but I wasn't willing to admit it at those times because, it's still a process that we're going through internally. We're still trying to, sift through our own fucking mess. So you said that you were at the step 9, and for the most part, I think that's kind of where I like teetered off as well, right? Because really, it ends up being like 10, 11, and 12 are just kind of maintenance steps, and they're really just kind of like a review of like like what we've already gone through, the steps, whatever 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, So 10 and 11 and 12 are really what they call the maintenance steps. And that's just basically, and we already, for the most part, a lot of us do that already, right? For the most part, we're already familiar with that process. Even before we start to do that, we've started to learn like, oh, like if you make a mistake, try and correct it immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then, and then again, you say the same things, which I do too. I have a hard time with the praying and the meditation. And I really did have a hard time. And my own thoughts are really, I am my worst enemy. Ultimately, that's the idea. So, and then again, step 12. Well, you're doing it right now, so yay. so I guess ultimately, like, so it's been like what 5 years now?
No,
like
this past December was 4.
4 years. So ultimately, like, how do you see yourself now in recovery, and like, how do you deal with reality today? Like today, you're you're a plumber, right? You're still plumbing, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
You're in relationships. I see that you have a girlfriend. I see that again, you're doing stand up. You're in groups. You're doing all these different things. How do you take all that the last 4 years and kind of like, how do you live today? How does that work for you? Do you see like quote unquote recovery show up in your life where maybe it didn't before, or do you see like yourself acting and behaving differently, or are there some things that maybe you still need to work on? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be things that I need to work on. I go to therapy too. I don't know how helpful that is for me because I know some people have a hard time opening up and talking about stuff, but I'm not like that. I'll you know, it could be a guy next to me in line at the bank, and I'll tell him my whole life story. I don't, um, but I need to work, you know, anger and holding on to resentments and my ego, man. That's a big thing. Like that, my sponsor, you know, through AA and my sponsor, like realizing how much my ego plays a part in everyday things. You know, my sponsor says your ego is not your amigo. I'm lucky. I mean, my girlfriend, she just doesn't drink. She's not sober. She just is not a drinker. And most of the people I spend time with aren't drinkers. And
I notice most of the people in the world are kind of not like that. Right? Like, it's so weird. After you wake up, you're like, oh shit! Like I thought everybody drank like I did. Nearly nobody drank like I did. Yeah, so it's exactly like.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I started dating, in like my first couple of years of sobriety, I'll go out on dates with girls, and they would order a cocktail. And then I'd be watching it, like, dude, when are you gonna finish it? Like, get the bartender's here. Like, do you want another one? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You're just gonna have one. But yeah, in my day-to-day life now, I think it's totally. I hate to say like I'm the best version of myself, but I mean that's not saying much because the past 20 years was a pretty rough go. But I mean, I need my structure for sure. I need structure. I need to get up at this time, go to the gym. I write down on my phone my list of things to do for the day. Like this is on it. I'm going to cross that off my list. I really need that structure. Because when I was drinking, I didn't do anything else in my life. I was just a slob. Like I just existed. I would just spend a Sunday just on the couch doing nothing, watching HBO Max and never worked out, never cared about what I ate health-wise, anything like that. I was just like really, I don't know. I look back and I kind of can't believe it. And then last night I went to Costco, which I do every Friday. I go to Costco, I get ground turkey, yogurt, Greek yogurt, and blueberries, and I have a real odd relationship with the pizza over there, where it's, you know, I want to get it, and then I'm like, come on, you're not, you know, like to me, it's okay to have a cheat meal if you've already like planned, you know what, this Saturday I'm gonna have a cheat meal. But when you just say fuck it, and that's not good. And
it becomes your normal,
right. And so, but I do this thing where I'm like, I convince myself, like it was my birthday yesterday. So I'm like, it's your birthday. You can have some. You can have some. So I get in line and I've got money in my hand. Like I'm like outside of the ice cream truck, or, you know what I mean? And I'm waiting. There's people behind me. There's people in front of me. And I do this probably every 2 weeks. And then like, I'm like in my head about it, in my head. Then it's like, okay, next. And I'm like, I just go. I just scurry away. And people are like, do you want? And I just, I bet you the people behind the counter are probably like, oh, here's that guy again. Is he going to actually buy pizza or not? Because I battle in my head, and then I don't. We're going to go out for Italian later on, and I'll binge, and I'll eat pasta and bread and everything. But.
Yeah, I have part of my set is my recovery set anyway was like, you know, it's a battle because I'm addicted to sugar, really I am, and you know so for the first few years in recovery anyway, I mean I'm eating like a pint of Ben and Jerry's every night. You know, I am like I'll sit there and I'm gonna be like I'll have just 2 Oreo cookies for a snack, right? And I'll finish a whole rail, and then I'll be like, well, where did the whole rail go? You know, and then it's like. You know, or I'm like halfway through, and I'm like, well, I guess I just got to finish the whole rail. You know,
you can't leave it.
Yeah, so it's I've had a real battle, and I've had the pooch develop. You know, like the overhang on my belt, and I've never gained weight in my entire life until I got sober. So this is like, you know, this is the most I've ever weighed, basically. So it is kind of weird. And then you get older, and of course your metabolism is a whole different ballgame too. So you got to deal with that stuff. Okay, so let me give you some speed rounds. Are you ready? Some speed round questions. So
ready.
I'm gonna ask you questions. You just first thing that comes to your mind. Ready? Are you ready? You're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. What is your current favorite sober treat or indulgence? Is it pizza?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We already answered. Morning routine or night owl? Which one keeps you more centered?
Morning.
Morning? Why morning? What do you do? What's your regimen?
I just prefer the day. I can get kind of depressed at night, believe it or not.
No, I believe it.
Yeah,
That's
I get
my
kind of
that's
lonely and yeah, I'm super like this time of day from like yeah, I'm hyped. I'm good to
That's
go.
my reality too. My reality is definitely that. Like when I get up in the morning, like Marcus Aurelius in Stoicism says, like own the morning, right? And I definitely try to own the morning. Like a lot of my best, and I never used to be that way too. I was always the opposite of that too. Okay, so what is one thing that you're grateful for today that seems small to everyone else?
I mean, I'm grateful for routine.
Yeah, and that's small to everybody else. A lot of people don't have routines, that's for sure. All right, what's the best piece of recovery advice you have ever received?
I think it would be I don't know if it's advice, but my sponsor telling me what part did you play in it,
Hmm.
and that goes for a lot of different scenarios. So anytime I have an issue with somebody or something, I revert back to, all right, well, what part did you play in it? And in most cases, I can find, you know what? Yeah, I probably should have done this or done that or said this or said that. And it does help with everyday life. And even like with my girlfriend, if there's an issue, I'm always like, all right, well, before you, what part did you play in it?
Hmm.
And I try to like use that in all aspects of my life.
Yeah, one part for me that really held true for that really helped me unlock a big part of my past because I was always the one that said, well, because of her, because of them, because I was beat, because I was poor, whatever it was, right? And then most of the time, my part in that was I held on to it, right? Like I held on
Hmm.
to those things and I used that stuff as excuses, right? So a big part of that is sometimes there's a little unlock there that happened for me when I hear that stuff, and I go, oh yeah, it's because I fucking held on to that shit and I used it as an excuse and I held on to
Hmm.
the resentment. And I could have just let it go. All right,
Yeah.
what is one word what does your sobriety feel like today in one word? It's a hard one, I know.
Enormous.
Enormous. Ooh, now explain that because I'm curious.
Well, I mean, it just feel because anything that's happening that's good in my life right now would not exist without me being sober.
Hmm.
None of it. So it's huge to me. Like my sobriety is huge. It's kind of the most important thing. If I lose that, I lose everything along with it. So
And then,
even though I'm not at an AA meeting every day, or I'm not like I don't even my social media is not super, sober heavy, but it is. I mean, me being sober is it is enormous part of my life. And without it, it's kind of game over.
yeah, yeah, for a long time I did the thing of like if we were if we were sitting around a room, again, especially within like 2 years of recovery, if we are sitting around a room and family's talking and somebody says something that triggers my little recovery brain, I'd be like, well, you know what I mean. I was that motherfucker, and I couldn't. At some point, I like everybody's just like not only do you lose friends from like your drinking friends, but you can easily like lose the friends of people that are trying to support you by being Mr. fucking recovery all the time. So
Yeah,
there is a hefty balance that we have to have, and if it becomes your identity fully and solely, well then you're not really living life. You're just living in recovery. Right, and I
yeah,
I figured that one out for myself too, and that was a real it was a real nice moment when I kind of broke free of that and realized like, oh shit, I actually got to do some other things other than just stay sober, right? Because
yeah.
that's just not a life. That's not why I didn't get sober just to fucking get sober, right? Plain
Right.
and simple. So I got sober so I could live life and do other things. All right, Mike. So if you had the opportunity to tell, I don't know, the next 100 people like advice about getting and staying sober, what would that advice be?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think, I mean, everybody is different, and I wish I could say like, hey, if you see warning signs early, because nobody wants to go through the pain and the suffering of like, I don't wish my situation on other people. I want you to. I've had people that reach out to me and they're like, hey man, I'm struggling, uh, how did you quit? And I explain like my kind of rock bottom, and then they're like, oh yeah, that's what I need. I need a rock bottom like that. I'm like, no, you don't. You already know. You already know that it's a problem. You just got to nip it in the butt, you know. But unfortunately, I don't know. I think I don't think there's any advice that anybody could have told me 10 years ago or 5 years ago that I would have taken seriously. Not when I was heavy in my own drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So, well, most people that are listening to this are going to be like, they're going to be curious, right? They're going to know that they have the issue or the problem. Like, so what
Yeah,
advice would
that's
you
true.
give to them at this point to say, like, you know, so maybe they're in there like their first week.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're just like, because that's what I did, dude. Like when I got sober, I was like, oh shit, like I better start getting active about what I need to take in here, and so that's why, like on the soberpod.com, I actually did like a university, which gives you almost like a primer of like the possibilities of like paths that you can go down in sobriety. Do you do 12-step? Do you do smart recovery? Do you do rational recovery? Like, what is it that you may have to change in your life in order to make that happen? Friends and places and playmates and playthings, all that good stuff. So I kind of do a primer on there. But if you were to tell somebody with your experience, like, who's just getting sober, like a week sober, like what would you tell them in terms of, tips, advice, tricks, whatever you have going on?
For me, it's staying busy. Like think of like a shark, and that's genuinely how I feel. Like if I'm not moving, I'm dying, and that's from working out, being outside, being with friends, taking ukulele lessons. I mean,
have you taken ukulele lessons? That's a question. Have you taken?
Yes.
Nice.
I went to a place in Santa Ana, and the guy didn't speak English. And there was like 8 different little small rooms. I thought it was going to be a group. I don't know why I thought there'd be that many people for ukulele lessons. And it's just me and this little guy in a smaller, like the room, like the size of like a telephone booth. And he just puts my hands on the thing and he goes, strame, strame, strame. And then he leaves the room. And then I'm just sitting there by myself. And then he comes back like 5 minutes later. Okay, strame, strame, strame. And he leaves. And he was just going from room to room to room to all these different people in these little booths.
But it was fun. But you learned how to play a little bit.
I need to. Now that I know like the basics, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah.
So
I really like staying busy, and I fantasize sometimes like, oh, I can't wait tonight. I'm just gonna lay down and binge watch this or that. I can't wait to do that. And I'm telling you, every time it comes to that point where I've taken care of all the chores and I've done all these different things, and now it's time to do that, I'm like, ugh, this is depressing. I need to get out. I need to go. I don't, So I go to Improv City, or I go watch stand up, or I go hang out with friends or whatever. I stay really, really busy. I mean, today, once I'm done with this, I'm going to go on my checklist and see what else needs to be done. And I don't know. I like staying busy. It keeps me, I feel productive. And I think that's a lot. Like to me, I think I'm still hard on myself in the way I used to be. And it's like, I want to be like the polar opposite of that guy. And if anything I can do, there's, I don't know if you're familiar with the Phoenix. That's like a sober community. They have, it's such an awesome thing.
I'm familiar.
You download the app and they're constantly offering free classes or free workshops. Like I've done a bunch of them, and you're meeting like-minded people. I can't say more good things about the Phoenix. It's such a cool program.
Yeah, I've looked into them a couple times actually. Yeah, just because doing the podcast, it's like, oh, what are these people doing? So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great. It's not so structured like AA. You're with other sober people, and maybe it's boxing, or maybe it's helping cleaning up the beach, or it's going to a movie. Like they organize these things, and it's all free. All you have to have is 24 hours sobriety.
Yeah, and then the willingness to actually just go do that shit. Period. Right? Or the capability to do that. Yeah, that's one of the things.
You'll feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who like is a stay-in that is home alone with the blinds drawn who feels better after doing that.
True. My current sponsor. The reason why I'm doing improv, by the way, was because my current sponsor was like, it was about 3-4 years ago. He was like. He's like, what do you do for fun? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I do the podcast. I writing a book. I'm like, doing all this other stuff. I'm helping people, blah, blah. I do like events at the, at our, our club and that kind of stuff. And he's like, no. What do you actually do for fun? Like, where do you find joy? And I talked about this on the podcast recently, and it was like that question kind of hit me hard, and it really made me reflect about like, well, what am I really doing? And that's kind of why I got into doing improv, because I asked myself, like, what would I really like to do? Like, what's the one things that like I really look at and have always had interest in, and and again, this is all bucket list kind of behavior for me. And so when I started to do it, I was like, oh, this doesn't have to be bucket list. This can be just like who I am, right? Like this could be like what I do all the time. Like it doesn't have to be just like do it for 3 months or take a class or whatever. It could be something like I do all the time. So yeah, it gave me a much more interest but before that too, just like you, I believed in being active. Like that is a big part of recovery. Like, cause really the sedentary lifestyle, the same, day in, day out behavior that I had drinking, I could easily have in sobriety. Like the dudes that like literally just go to a meeting every day, and that they are and that's just what they do. And then they go home and, defrost their meals or whatever. Like, I just I don't want to be that person, man. I don't want to be just the dude in recovery just doing that. I needed to do other things too. So,
I said I make the 2 chore lists, and like up top is like the essentials that I have to do. And then on the bottom is like recreational things that I hope to get to through the weekend. And there are certain things that I put on there that I know I'm going to do, but it just helps to it's nice to get the check on the little box, So like the gym, I'm going to go regardless. I'm definitely going to go, but I still put it on there because it's nice to get the check. Okay, so I've done that one thing. All right, get the oil changed. That's another thing, that's whatever. Clean your work truck, bring stuff to Goodwill, go help a friend, whatever it is. I get a lot of value out of making those lists and know that I've crossed them off. And
yeah, there's a reason why I wrote the book, because it introduces a lot of those concepts and a lot of that behavior that you don't get when you're in the rooms of recovery, right? Because that's the reason why I do that stuff, because that's all the stuff I picked up outside of recovery. Just like you said, everybody is different. Everybody has their own amalgamation of recovery, but there is the core essence that that we get by going through the step work and doing that kind of stuff. But after that, it's really about you picking up different tools that you find along the way that really are going to help you live your life. Like some people, our fucking homebodies, they just prefer to do that stuff. They're just very individualized, right? But people like me, and it sounds like people like you, I need people in my life. I need to go out there and experience shit. I giving in that way to an audience, or picking up those energies. I love all that shit. That's just part of it. So that's why it's so funny. I started on the podcast 8 years ago saying, "Stay active, stay sober." Right? That becomes the little tagline that I have.
Yeah.
Because I believe in what you're talking about for sure, and I recommend it highly. So if I was going to give somebody the same advice, I give it at the end of every show, right? Which is stay active and stay sober. That's for sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, Mike. I think that really covers it. At some point, I don't know, maybe we'll have you on again. But do me a favor. How can people see more of you and follow you? Maybe if they're in the Southern California area, they can come see your sets and see your shows, and maybe show up to a bar and know that somebody else on the stage is not drinking, right?
Yes. I post everything. My Instagram, which I'm sure we'll tag, is Mike Whalen Comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Whelan, Mike Whalen Comedy. That's my Instagram, and I'm at Improv City most Thursdays and Sundays. It's a really great group of people over there. I really love that community a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It has become for me a very enriching place. Work on relationships place. Yeah, I don't know if I still don't know if I fit in, but I definitely show up. but that's just my personal thing. So then what's your Instagram again? It was Mike Whelan Comedy. How do you spell the last name?
MikeWhelan Comedy.
Awesome. And then hopefully we can get you back on at some point and do a follow-up. I would love to do that.
Man.
Please, listeners, don't forget to subscribe, and follow, and comment. And then again, if you comment on this stuff, hopefully Mike will see it and maybe comment as well. So other than that, what would be your closing tagline? I say stay active, stay sober. What's your closing tagline to the people?
Oh, man. Stay sober and be good to everybody. Be good to people.
And I say stay active, stay sober. See ya.
Thanks, buddy.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see them. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.